When you're using the Chicago Manual of Style, you'll often want to use footnotes, and in this video I'll talk about how to cite your sources properly in the footnotes. The first thing to recognize is that there's a difference between the footnote version and the final bibliography entry. As you can see, in the footnote version, we typically use commas to separate the items in the note. In the bibliography entry, we tend to use periods between the major elements of the citation and then commas within those sections. As you can see for this periodical entry, we have the author, the title, and the publication information all separated by periods. When it comes to page numbers, it's often common to provide the specific page reference in the footnote, and then either to give a full page range in the bibliography entry, or in some cases simply to leave out the page range altogether. It's also common in your footnotes to shorten your citations over time, so you don't have to repeat every last detail. As you can see from this example here, we have shortened the title, we've left out much of the publication information, and so it's much easier to read this entry and not to get all this repeat information. As we do so, we typically leave out the first name. We also leave out any contributor roles like editor, for instance. If the title is longer than 4 words, we can shorten it, and as we do so, we may also remove any articles. Now, some people are fond of using a style that's even shorter. As you can see from this example, here there's no title at all. The Chicago Manual of Style prefers the fuller form, but if your instructor is okay with this ultra-short version, you may want to go with it. At times, you may want to include a quotation in a footnote, and if you do so, it's customary to provide the citation afterwards in a separate sentence. As you do so, it's up to you whether you want to give the full name of the author again, or only the last name, or do it in some other fashion. Now, when you use footnotes, it's very common to use the word C or the abbreviation CF. The word C is a great way to start your entry after you've provided some information. And the abbreviation CF stands for compare. So only use this if you're actually comparing two different perspectives. Don't use it just to say, hey, you should also have a look at this other source. At times, you may want to emphasize part of a quotation or part of a text, and if you do so, you can use the phrase emphasis added in parentheses or some other phrase that you think is suitable, like italics mine, italics added, and so on. If you have multiple citations in a row, if you're listing many sources on the same topic, let's say, then it's good to use semicolons in between them to separate them in the list. At times, it may be good to use some cross-referencing. If you want one note to refer to another, do double-check before you print off your project that all these notes are still referencing the right footnote. Notice also that we've used the abbreviation N for note and NN for notes in order to refer to specific footnotes. This is also very useful if you are citing another person's footnote and you want to be specific in your citation. As you cite more complex sources, you're going to come across entries where there are no page references. You may need to be creative at times. Sometimes there's a very specific way to cite something, as in the example of Dante here. And after the first entry, it's often common to use a shorter version of the citation. The Chicago Manual of Style does point out that with the word line and lines, it's customary to write them out, at least the first time. Whereas with page and pages, it's much more common to abbreviate them. So be aware of that distinction. And that's it for using footnotes for your citation using the Chicago Manual of Style.